Hello, this is Farrell Vincent with Nation 473. Making an interesting part two to a video about nation management. And the reason why I will call this part two is I wasn't planning on making another video, but I realized that some of the work that we had done as a nation for 473 just wasn't living up to a good standard. We are trying a systematic approach to determining whether or not alliances are participating and how well they're participating. And we've tossed around a ton of ideas, and we landed on pairing off and bracketing together alliances, right? So 473 has its main monster alliance, that is UBF. It's the alliance I'm in. I'll pull up our nation ranking here in a second. So you can see from the alliance power ranking, right? Like we are the number one for both BP, but also like we have a vast majority of the actual strength from our nation, right? So if you look at the officer ranking, for instance, and you start going down the list, right? AKE, Champ, Cedric, Small, me, Turk, Hulk, right? You don't find the next person until Terror and LDF at number 9, and then like JRA, LDF, and then we go right back into more UBF members and so on. Litrax here is technically one of ours. He's just on a small break. Like a lot of these people are in UBF, and it just keeps going down, right? So you can see we hold a lot of the actual physical stat strength, right? We have a lot of the higher level cities. We have a lot of the strongest titans, right? We have pretty much most of the strongest warplanes. Stu's a monster, so don't let him fool you. Stu's amazing. Love Stu. But you can see that we have, the vast majority of the strength in our nation. And so why does that matter? With the bracketing system we wanted to go ahead and say that the top 7 alliances, because these are all of the independent alliances, the top 7 alliances would compete against us, meaning their scores would compete against ours. So what percentage of the total amount of points are we earning from the top 7 alliances in 473? Then we paired LDF and JRA because they are very close in both BP, but also strength. They actually have a lot of comparable cities. And then we kind of lumped the bottom 4 together in one group. So, we're special circumstances. This is group 1, this is group 2, and then we get paired against everyone. So our total number of points would be dragged down by everyone else. These two are competing. Whoever gets the more points, right, wins in essence. And the same thing for the bottom 4. Whoever gets the highest amount would win in theory. The problem is it ended up weighting way too hard on losses because we wanted to go ahead and take the points earned, subtract out the losses based on a percentage, right? So what percent of the points did you earn in your bracket? What percent of the losses did you contribute in your bracket? The issue comes down to how that physically plays out, right? So with LDF and JRA very specifically, they are deadlocked in a 2-person team, meaning if we're going to go with a percentage, right, there's 100% of points available, and we're going to take what percent of points did you earn minus what percent of losses did you contribute. It guarantees whoever has the highest number of losses will always lose out in the bracket and be purged. Because what we would do with this information is whoever was on the bottom of their respective groups, or basically whoever doesn't earn at least a positive percentage, right? So meaning there wasn't a negative, would be safe from purge. Well, there's no real way for 2 alliances to do that effectively. It's really, really difficult because what will end up happening is it's going to ensure that one of the 2 of them is always there. And I'll give an extreme example. if hypothetically speaking, LDF scored all of the points between the two of them, or most of them, because 1 through 4, right? Your total amount of points you get from Avoid or Frenzy, you're always going to get something. If they fought, did well, doesn't even matter how they did. Their performance is irrelevant. If they scored 99% of points and JRA completely bubbled, meaning every single person bubbled, they lost 0 Alliance BP, they came out exactly the same as they were before, what would end up happening is LDF would have 99% of the score, but 100% of the losses, they would be -1 at that point and therefore purged, even though JRA is objectively the worst alliance in this particular scenario that I'm trying to describe. And even like what happened, LDF scored 54% of the points for what happened in our void, but they got 55% of the losses. So they scored almost equivalent, right? These two competed and were almost the exact same. But because LDF lost a little bit more for earning a lot more points, because it actually ended up being like 1 billion point difference between the two alliances in our last void, like that's a huge difference. And the losses weren't all that bad. I mean, they only lost like 100 million BP for 4 billion points. Like that's not a lot. And that's a really hard idea to hurt somebody for that. Like, I don't want to purge an alliance because they did what our normal is. Like, that's every event for UBF. We always score about 4 to 5 billion points for about 100 million losses. Like, that's our performance. They did what we normally do. And so we realized that this system isn't going to work. So part 2 of this video, right? That's all the setup. That was the mistake, and I'll own it. I'm sorry to my nation, by the way. Like, I can't believe I didn't catch that earlier. It is a system designed to make sure that somebody is always punished and somebody fails. In this case, just through overweighting of percentages on the back end, that really wasn't a good system. I'll admit that. And a system that's set up to make sure that people fail, I'm never going to support. I don't want to get super political on anything, but I will say that like the American prison system is a great example of a system that is designed to help people fail. And that's not a good thing. Same thing here. Just on a less serious note, this is a video game. That's real life. So take it or leave it. So part 2. Part 2 really comes into, well, what are we doing about it? I want to do a new system. And I'm going to go ahead and show you guys the new system. I'm going to explain it in detail and why we're using it. And then I'm also going to include a link to a Google Doc so that if you'd like to try this out in your own nation, you can. I believe it was 746. Their top player, or one of their top players, left me a comment asking, well, when should we purge alliances? When should we purge people from our nation? Like, when do we stop the bleeders, right? Like, I believe that's the exact comment. And this is the part of the video I think geared towards that. So, when should you? Is when they're not contributing enough. So, how do we determine that? I'm going to pull something on screen. I realize this is not AOZ. Lumberg, eat your heart out. I'm doing my own spreadsheet video. I've gone ahead and already set up what I'm thinking, but I want to walk you guys through this. What is it? Why do we do it? How is it going to work? I don't want to put too much numbers in here because I think if we go too far past what the concept is, it will start to be really hard to follow. So I don't want to put real numbers in here. I'm going to put some fake numbers, mainly because I want to keep things small and show you what it looks like on an easier basis. Sorry, I used to work in corporate America. I find that this is a better way to describe a concept for a spreadsheet to a lot of people, because oftentimes the actual numbers just don't look good, when really the only thing you're going to ever care about is right here at the very end, column L. So what is this method? It'll allow you to put in your alliances, in my case, UBF, LBF, JRA, INT, TKM, RJA, and RVN. So now we have all of these alliances. And from here, we can extrapolate some details. So before every single Void and Frenzy, I would recommend getting your starting BP. I'm going to put 500, 400, 3, 200, 100. We'll go 50 and 25. Right? Again, numbers irrelevant. I would actually put the physical alliance BP in there because it's going to help you out a lot. Now, as you go through your 1 through 4 events, you're going to start to get your points from your first 4 phases of Frenzy and Void. And if you have no idea what I mean by the first 4 phases of Frenzy and Void, you probably should check out more videos on specifically those phases. I actually have videos that are a little bit older, but they're on how to maximize your points through those first 4 phases. I might remake those soon. That's actually a good idea. But for now, just note that when I say 1 through 4, I'm talking about the phases. And phase 5 of every Frenzy and Void is when you actually fight. 1 through 4 is going to be either recruiting, gathering, building, or zombies. I lump all of those together in the 1 through 4 points because each individual phase changes from event to event. If you wanted to track by that level of detail, you could absolutely add columns. I'm just not going to that level of detail because I don't think it's going to help me too much. So we need to know a 1 through 4 point. And the reason why you want to wait until pretty much right before the kill event, meaning phase 5, a few hours before that reset, we'll get to column C. But for now, let's get our 1 through 4 points. I'm going to put in, again, fake numbers. We'll say 1,000. We'll say 900. We're going to say 800, 700, 600, 500, 400. All right? Again, super easy. Making up some numbers. After your 1 through 4, you're going to have gotten through your recruiting phase. So you have a good chance to put in your new alliance BP. I'm going to, again, we're going to put in some numbers. I'm going to say 650. We're going to put in 550, 450, 350, 250, 150, and 125. So at this point, you're going to go in and you're going to go through your phase 5. You're going to battle. About 5-10 minutes before the end of the event. You can do, up to like 2-3 minutes if you really want to get super close, 30 seconds, whatever number makes sense. Right before the end of Frenzy or Void, take a snapshot of every single alliance so that you have their ending BP. I do recommend doing it right before reset, because in the case of like Frenzy, BP will rebound super fast at reset because people's troops will be restored to them and all of whatever they lost is just going to go straight up. So I'm going to just say, for the sake of argument, everyone had a very bloody event and they lost a little bit more than their starting, right? So I'm just doing 50 minus the start. Super bloody Void in this case. Why not? 50. We'll do 25. And then these guys are like 5. Why not? I like these numbers. It's more fun this way for me. So now we have the total amount of BP lost by each individual alliance. You can see here that this column automatically, column E, which is BP loss, is automatically going to kind of determine some of these things for you. Makes it super easy. And so finally we have total points earned. So again, you've gotten through phase 5. Everyone's fought. Everyone's gotten their BP lost. We've filled this column out. Now all we need to do is put in the total amount of points earned, and this is going to determine a lot. So we're going to just put in just some fun numbers. These are not going to be anywhere near what you're going to see in an actual void because these are way too low, but we're going to have fun. I'm going to just make up some stuff at this point. We'll do 1225. These guys did great. Let's do, I don't know, 900. 650. Yeah, that sounds like fun. 510. Just a few points earned. And then we'll do 401. All right. So from here, you're going to see quite a few things, right? And I picked these numbers because this is going to help to illustrate a lot of different points. Here's why this is important to me. Because there's really two main columns that we can now determine a few things from. So first and foremost, column K. This is points earned per BP. So I'm starting here because the idea that I have for my nation management system, right? Now that we have all these numbers in here, we can talk to the what is it doing? I feel like every single alliance needs to think about their BP in terms of what burden does it place on that nation. So if BP is the main thing that's helping you matchmake for Frenzy and Void, which has been confirmed by every VIP that I've ever seen, that is the consistent answer we get from Camel. If that is the main thing that determines that, then every single person needs to earn their BP in your nation. If they do not, that's a problem. It's hard to do this on an individual level because you are not going to see every single person's score, right? Without them sending you screenshots or some kind of really hardcore management, you're going to struggle to do this. So what I generally recommend is looking at an alliance and are they earning at least as many points per BP as they actually have? And in this example, all of the alliances do so. So, right, this column will automatically calculate out points per BP, which is a great thing to start with because you're going to want to know how effective are people. When we come over to our second column, over here, column J, that is the percentage of BP lost during the event to earn that. And this is a drastic void. This would be ugly. Like our actual numbers are closer to UBF lost, I think 21%, which is still really high. And then I want to say LDF was 6%. And JRA was, I think 9%. So generally, a number less than 20, it would be probably ideal. 30, 40, 96%, that's a lot. But again, great example of how this could technically happen. And then finally, we get to the last two columns, the ones that I haven't done. These are all my setup. We come into positive or negative and ranking. And these are the two things that are going to determine whether or not an alliance gets purged going forward in 473. That's if, of course, we decide to go with this. I do want to sell this to our other alliances, right? But this is my recommendation. This is what I'm putting forward on behalf of UBF, on behalf of myself, and saying, hey, this is the system that I think would work the best. So why? Because now what this is doing, this calculation, is just very simply your percent of points earned per BP. And why is this a percentage? So let's start here. Really simply, if you look at the points earned per BP, it's automatically a percent, right? So if you're earning 1 point per BP you're at 100%. 100% is just very simply 1 on a calculation, right? So 1. Same thing here. So 2.31, we have 231% BP. I could literally turn this into a percentage. We'll do that right now on screen, right? I could literally turn this into a percentage and it won't change. It's pretty cool, right? Yeah, sure, I added decimal points, so the calculation gave me 2 extra digits, but you get the point. Like, that's all the same numbers that you saw earlier, right? The other one was 2.31. Now it's 230.77. So that's the easiest way to convert over points to the BP comparison. Here's the best part, though, is when we add in the BP loss and we subtract them out, we can now get a finalized score. And again, this is also technically a percentage, but I really care about the raw number on this one, because any alliance that does not at least make 1, meaning 1.0, will automatically be eligible for purge. Because if you don't earn at least 1 BP, or 1 point per BP you have as an alliance, then you're not carrying your portion of burden. You need to earn at least 1, and it's really easy to do that. I mean, not hard at all. So, big thing to think about there is, are you at least earning your 1 point per? So that's our first qualifier. I do have my conditional formatting set up. For anyone who's never done conditional formatting, it's great because then whenever one of these numbers would be like 0.2, it'll automatically highlight in red. And so you can see here that like conditional formatting on a spreadsheet like this just means that there's less management you have to do. If anyone falls below 1, they're automatically red. They're eligible for purge for that particular event. Positive or negative, this is a harder one to describe to people. But in essence, I don't want people in our nation pushing really hard to zero themselves out in an event just to get points, right? The idea of positive or negative, this column I, and I don't know, there might be a better name for it. Let me know down in the comments if you have one and we can totally update it. That was what I thought of. If it's a positive number, meaning or even just 0, the alliance earned as many points as it lost, right? So it's hard to say BP lost equals points given up in most events. So let's be specific. There's too many calculations for this to be perfect, but it's at least a good indicator. If an alliance ever goes into the kill event, meaning their total points earned minus their 1 through 4 score would equal the amount of points they earned in phase 5, right? So this is the total. This is 1 through 5 or 1 through 4. This is just phase 5 points. So if this is ever if this is ever less than the amount of points that they lost, the BP they lost, you have a good indicator that they probably gave up more points than they earned during the fighting itself, which generally means that the alliance got zeroed out, right? Or they had a lot of drop bubbles, or they fought really poorly and just lost every fight that they took. You know what I mean? Like, this is a very good indicator that the alliance didn't perform well on combat day. And in this example, you will see alliances that technically passed the ranking for points earned per point of BP, but they don't pass the positive or negative test, meaning as soon as they hit negative anything, the conditional formatting will kick in and say, hey, you didn't at least earn more than you gave up, so you're now still eligible for purge. I'm sorry. And the reason I want to do it in a 2-step phase is so that people don't just leave their bubbles open and earn whatever points they can by getting zeroed out every event. That's counterintuitive to the whole point of we need you to earn at least as many points or at least as much as your BP. But we also need you to not just like sandbag the event. You know, like your 1 through 4 score shouldn't be carrying you that hard. So that's the point. This is going to help us determine who we're purging on a biweekly basis. And so I think this might help out a lot of nations. Because really, when you look at what this is, it's more or less just people owning up to the actual numbers they're putting up, right? The only thing that you really have to input for the spreadsheet to work is these first 3 columns and these middle 2 columns. So with these first 3 and middle 2, it's the only input you have. The rest will calculate that out on its own. So good news. That will make that nice and easy. And yeah, that is really what we're going to be trying for nation management. So I feel like I've done the best job I could to explain this. I'm sorry if this video is a little bit weird, but I figured let's pull it up and let's take a look at it. So if you like this kind of content, please hit the like button. Of course, subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out a lot. Leave a comment if you have any questions about this, because I'm sure that I didn't explain something. So I would love questions. And as always, I will see you guys on the next one. Thank you so much.